So yeah, I'm doing this on a Saturday night when I don't expect anyone to be watching, which is fine. This is an opening introductory piece to my birthday project this year, which may not be every day. I just wanted to begin it because it's the new moon, and I am going to tell a story afterwards. But the birthday, this is the introductory video, which is what I always did in my writing projects. So this is the introductory video. So for the last decade or so, I have been telling stories on my birthday. I used to have a blog that I would write about whatever whatever was happening in my life. I would just blog about adventures and travels and people I was having sex with and thoughts and feelings. And I stopped doing that in 2011. And after that, my birthday project started being like, well, I'll just blog openly. Well, it's my birthday time, which I celebrate a day for every year that I am that year. And I started getting really tired of just talking about what I was doing. So last few years I've been telling stories that were more elaborate, like what's my history with New York? What's my history with my ego? That was what I did last year. And this, similar to last year, this year I was in a meditation retreat during my actual birthday. So I didn't do the birthday project starting on my birthday, which is June 1st. So I'm starting it right now because it's the new moon in Cancer. I had this whole thing when I started this whole counting my birthdays for however many days I am years that year relating to secondary progressions in astrology when I was 23, which I felt like, oh, this is when I'm turning into a Cancer. It's like I'm growing into the emotional instead of just thinking about everything. So my project this year is going to be about telling stories in live video, and it's not going to be necessarily at times when everybody's going to be able to tune in. However, I do want to say that if anybody wants me to specifically do something at a specific time, and I can, I will. I have no problem with scheduling things at a specific time. But I'm going to publish, not tonight, maybe tomorrow, a list of stories that I intend to tell this year. And they're just stories from my life because that's really all I have to work with. I do have an imagination, but it doesn't tend to be narrative. So I'm going to be telling a story after this introductory video that, again, it's more expository and imagination. It's not narrative, but it's kind of a fantasy. It's not just going to be about my life. And a lot of the stories I'm going to be telling this year are inspired by the meditation retreat I've been on, but they're going to be stories throughout my life in which I had multidimensional experiences. One of the stories that I tell often is that when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a wizard when I grew up. And everybody said, you can't be a wizard. That's not a real thing. And of course, I've become a wizard. So a lot of these stories are going to be about me wanting to be a wizard and trying to become a wizard and believing that I can't be a wizard, and then becoming a wizard anyway. I don't know. I hope this is something you can hear without too much beard noise. I was trying to find a good miking situation. This looks awkward. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to publish a list of stories that I'm going to be telling, and I'm going to ask people to request them. And I'm also going to ask people to request any story they're interested. So this is the introductory video, so if you watch this at any point, I may type this out as well. And indeed, part of the reason I'm doing this project is to tell all the stories that I feel like it's important to tell. So I may even do more than 39 segments. I may tell stories multiple times. And I really want to also do interviews with people, talking to them about their lives and hearing some of their stories, and having people interview me because it's kind of more interesting to tell a story if somebody specific is listening or if I'm telling it to someone specifically. And indeed, I think last night I thought how interesting it would be to just randomly find people in parks or public places and ask them to interview me and then interview them, or vice versa. So anyway, that's what this year is going to be about. It's going to be about live videos and reposting it to YouTube as I've been doing, and talking as opposed to writing, and then maybe going through those videos and writing the stories down and publishing a book. Not really a book, but like an ebook. Anyway, that's the idea. So happy birthday to you, and happy birthday to me. And if you have any time or interest over the next 2 months, I'm going to be telling stories. And again, If you have any specific requests, please ask. Hello, everybody. Okay, so I think that's sufficiently enough of an introduction to this. I guess instead of just clicking off, I'll just stay on. I was going to click off and start a new one, but I'll just stay on because the story I'm going to tell is not very long either. So the story I'm going to tell, for those of you who like sex stories, comes from a lot of the work I've been doing in the last 5 years in QiGong, but it kind of culminated last night while I was having sex with somebody. And I had sex with this really beautiful, beautiful, sexy little daddy bear yesterday, and I came 3 times, and it was like, wow. And then after seeing an amazing concert, there's more viewers when I'm talking about sex. After seeing an amazing concert in the evening, I went to hook up with this fellow who we've been wanting to have sex for a couple of years, but it just wasn't working out. And he asked me to, and I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. So I went out to see him. And one of the things that I'm really into in having sex with people is connecting with them in a deep, multi-dimensional way. And, you know, again, this might just be a fantasy thing to a lot of people that just wouldn't know what the hell I'm talking about, but like exploring the inner worlds of the energetics of a person and taking something that might just be superficial and pleasant or pleasurable and making it something more multidimensional. So this is a very good, this is a very good example of the kind of stories I'm going to be telling, because 6 years ago I had sex with some guy in Key West where we had sex for 4 hours without ejaculating, and he had gone to Thailand and spent time with Mantak Chia studying sexual qigong. Yeah, gay pride, everybody, because I'm talking about sex. So he had not really applied it, but by the time I met him, he had been doing it really intensely for 2 years, like masturbating for hours every day without coming, and hooking up with people to have sex with them that was all about not having orgasms, although a lot of the people wanted to, but just edging and edging and edging. And the experience I had with him was very inspiring. It was like, this is the sex I've always wanted to have. And when I came back to New York, I started to try to find people who did like sexual qigong. And one of the most common forms of sexual qigong is not called sexual qigong. It's what a lot of gay people call tantra, which is not really what tantra is about, but it's what was appropriated as and called tantra in the 90s under Body Electric. So that's like a type of training that's from qigong, from Mantak Chia, and has a lot to do with like taking the sexual energy and using it as an energetic focal point that you move through areas in your body consciously to give yourself a different type of full-bodied orgasm. So I started trying to study this, and eventually Mantak Chia came to New York, and I started studying some of the stuff he was teaching, which was very simple qigong, but it kind of got me away from the sexual qigong and got me more into in-depth, like, awareness of energy patterns in my own body, different than what I was familiar with the superficial qigong I'd been doing since I was 15, and the chakra stuff that we all kind of know that, again, is I knew superficially, and I had been a dilettante playing with it for 20 years or something. And I progressed from Mantak Chia to Wan Li to Li Zhongfeng, these different Chinese guys who had different intentions of what they were doing with qigong. And again, without going into too much depth, I just was studying different things. And Master Liang and Wu, a book that I had found on the internet thanks to my friend Danny, who he had bought it, and I bought it on Amazon, this QiGong empowerment book, which has amazing stuff in it. So I've been practicing a lot of qigong with this idea that this is the type of wizardry I've always wanted, and losing interest in the type of sexual passion that I used to have, where I used to think that I could somehow engage with people in a sexual way and transform each other and the world. There was I grew up in Indiana, and there's a big Christian idea of how sex should only be allowed and marriage should only be allowed between a man and a woman, because that's sex for the proper purpose of procreating children, and that recreational sex should really be downplayed or made illegal in certain areas, right? And I got really obsessed with the idea of recreational sex. I was like, what is recreational sex? What does that mean? And in Europe, they actually regard it as a sport sometimes in athletics. I mean, I've seen advertisements where they phrase it like that, and I certainly feel in California that sex can be, very much regarded as just like an entertainment sport thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you just put a little bit more emphasis on it, which is what I was doing with my mind at the time, recreational sex becomes recreational sex. And of course, there's this idea that when you're having sex having sex to create children, you're, using the technology, the biotechnology of these fleshy vehicles that we are roaming this plane in to create new fleshy vehicles for other awarenesses to roam the plane in or make babies. So what are gay people doing with sex? Does it just feel good? Is it just to feel good? Is sex just to feel good? Well, that wasn't enough for me. It's like, I like fun and I like pleasure, but fun and pleasure have never been reason enough to do something for me. And like when people are like, let's just go have fun, I'm just like, what? That's not interesting to me. And even the idea of like, I just want to be happy. I was like, no, happy is a byproduct. It's not something you try to do. I don't know if this was wise, but this was what motivated a lot of my youth. So bringing it back more to the present moment, that when I started studying QiGong, I was like, man, I've been on the wrong path. I don't think I've been succeeding at what I've been wanting to achieve. So I started, even though sex led me into QiGong, I kind of backed off from the sexual QiGong to study these more in-depth layers of like integrating integrating the chakras, integrating the organ energies, the element energies, lots of different pathways, meridians, the nadis, the main nadi systems, and the 144,000 derivations of them. I mean, I'm somebody who's been interested in a lot of these different systems, and I've been integrating them as I can, which of course brings me back to sex. So in the last few years, I've been doing a lot more QiGong on a movement-based level, and I'm teaching it to my group of naked yoga dudes, one of whom just signed on. Hi there. And, with naked yoga, there's obviously a pleasure-oriented thing we're doing, but I've been trying to, teach them stuff that I find spiritually important. And spirituality, it's so weird when people say, oh, you're very spiritual, or it's a spiritually oriented thing. Hi. Everything in life is everything. Everything in life is riches and money and control and domination and abuse and exploitation and pleasure and happiness and joy and spirituality and love and hate. So it's the how do we steer the energy towards what we consciously want? And so one of the big QiGong things that I've been teaching is about how to live in unconditional love, right? Yeah, right. How to live in unconditional love. And when I teach it, this is all getting around to the story I wanted to tell. This is how I tell stories, these long, elaborate derivations and tangents. When I teach this stuff, I introduce it over and over and over again, because people in our culture don't know what QiGong is. And some people have heard of Qi. Some people have heard of Tai Chi. Some people do Tai Chi and they don't know what QiGong is. So this is all going circles. The way that I've been really enjoying introducing QiGong lately, and this is all getting back to the sex, so if that's what you're interested in, just listen for a minute. The way that I've been really getting into introducing QiGong is saying, well, like a fish or all the sea creatures live in the ocean, and they don't think about the water because it's the environment in which they live. So they take it for granted, and it's necessary for them to live, it's necessary for them to survive, but it's not something that most of them probably are aware of that much. Much like we exist in a matrix of energy that we take for granted, that it just surrounds us, that all of us are swimming in a matrix of energy and matter that we mostly just ignore. But there's so many factors in play that are really fascinating that we just, ignore. So if we get into a popular physics, popular science take on this, it's really easy to understand, and I can explain it to you, and you'll say, oh, yes, well, I understand that, and I believe that, or I've heard that. And so it's easy to make these logical leaps. So in physics, they say that the majority of the space in any solid matter, or the majority of space in any solid matter, including your body, is actually taken up by emptiness. And that if you took the entire Earth and removed all of the empty space, it would be about a tablespoon of stuff. So science, right? You can Google this, look it up. So what does that mean if you look at your body or you look at the screen you're looking at? Like, it looks solid. You look around, it's all solid. But if you looked at it really closely, you would see cells, molecules, structures. The molecules would be made up of what we tend to call elements, atoms that are made up themselves of parts, protons, neutrons, electrons, that are themselves made up of things like quarks, neutrinos, bosons. And when you get down to it, there's no matter in matter. It's just energy vibrating at different wavelengths. So like Leonard Susskind and his whole string theory, unified string field theory. So the light that's shining on my face and that's shining out of your screen is the same material that the physical solidness of the world around you is. The practice I've been doing with this Buddhism has really helped inform me in this, because in Buddhism they talk about every single moment of existence, which they say there's like 17 trillion a second, as an example, that's something beyond what your mind can process, is coming into existence and passing away at an intense flicker rate. Like, so if you're watching a movie, you may know that there's a flicker rate, that there's like 35 or frames per second or 42 frames per second, whatever the highest. I think 120 kilohertz nowadays with the new screens and the new technologies. But everything's a flicker rate, and that's what gives it the appearance of movement. So all of this energy that's vibrating and making it look like there's a room and space and you and me and particles, it's all vibrating energy akin to the same thing as light, sound. I mean, sound is moving matter around. So this is all incredibly complex, but just to get an understanding of something that you vaguely know, but make it personal, that you're not actually that different from the room around you, and the air, the molecules, that there's so much empty space in your being. So when I'm introducing this to the guys in the yoga group, I'll say like, okay, so be aware of the space you take up and the emptiness. And a lot of the QiGong movements we do involve holding the arms in the air for a long time. And I'll say, holding the arms with your muscles will wear you out and make you tired and exhausted and hurt. But if you let your arms float in the qi, because we're surrounded in all of this energy, and in QiGong, in Taoism, they believe that there's just infinite qi in the space around us. Like, not in the matter necessarily, but there's free qi in the spaces between the matter. So in the air, there's even more space between the matter than there is in our body. Not infinitesimally different, but still. So you can just open up your body, make it less dense, make it less heavy, and let the energy flow into you through the space. And then you don't actually need to hold your arms up. They literally can float. And this may sound weird, but if you do it with belief, like you have the paradigm shift, if you put yourself in the mind state where you're like, I'm mostly empty space, everything around us is mostly empty space, I don't need to hold myself, even though the gravity's pulling down the matter, there's enough energy and there's enough matter even, like your hands can float in the air. It just takes a little bit of a paradigm shift in identifying with the space around you as much as you do with what you call you. So one of the QiGong exercises that I got out of the Master Liang and Wu book, which is QiGong Empowerment, which you can buy on Amazon, and then later Li Feng has been teaching, so it's a regular Taoist practice, is to feel the energy flowing in your body, and then expand it out into the cosmos as far as you can. And then bring it back into yourself. And expand out, bring it back into yourself. And practice identifying with the gigantic space of infinity. So this is the story I'm telling. I'm having sex with this guy yesterday. He's a chub. He's tall. He's from Texas. He's a big body, huge shoulders, big belly. It's pretty simple sex. Oral. He's laying on his back. I'm sucking his dick. And because of the work that I did with the Montauk Chia sex qigong, when somebody comes, a lot of times people like to ejaculate. You know, we're just habituated. That's the goal. That's the fun thing. I like to take that energy and push it through their energy pathways, the energy pathways that I know. And so I've been doing this for the last few years when I do, especially, I mean, it works really well with oral sex because it's not as intense as anal sex. To take that orgasm and make it like a ball of energy, coalesce it, and push it through their body, and then push it through mine, so that they get to feel the experience of sharing bodies. And that's one of the things that is really exciting to me about sex, is that you get to like share your you get to share your physical energy, your sexual energy, and your life force between these two bodies. So to a certain degree, your awareness, your consciousness, whatever it is you think you call you, gets to go beyond your body. And what's really exciting, I mean, I've always kind of sometimes found this sad and sometimes found this exciting, but when other people don't have any practice like this, then I just get to be the wizard and do it to them. And especially after they've come and they're in that kind of mind-blown state of just laying there, I just take the energy and I push it through their body, and I push it through my body, and I push it through their body. Often I'll open their shock. How are you aware of sharing energy? You feel it. It's not something you think about. It's somewhere between thinking and feeling. If you're directing it, you use your imagination coupled with your sensational awareness. So the awareness of energy is more subtle than, say, being tickled or pet physically with a hand, or physical sensations, gross sensations. The awareness of energy is more subtle. But if you train yourself, it's like being aware of more color gradients, or more sound derivations like perfect pitch, or even quarter tones. There's a lot of different examples that can be applied to the physical, sensual realm. But being aware of sharing energy with another person is I usually start with the idea of feeling the physical sensations of where there's actual physical contact, and then moving beyond that layer. So right now, if you can feel the ambient temperature of the room against your skin, it might be warmer, it might be colder, it might be more humid or less humid. And if you can really feel what that sensation feels like, then you just expand the sensation slightly past that to what does the air outside of my skin feel like. And although there are a lot of rational things you can say about, well, you can't feel that because that's not your body, that's just rationality, and it's a machine that only works with what you put into it. So it's just your belief system. So you can just change your belief system. Not everybody can do that so fluidly. I have been told by many people that I have a fluid mind, and I can believe it. It's something I've worked really hard on and trained myself at when I was younger. Anyway, so I am doing this, something I've done many times over the last 3 or 4 years, I'm just feeling his legs, his belly, but I'm not moving anymore. There's just total stillness. He's laying there. He's drifting in and out of sleep. So he's in that liminal space of dreaming. And I'm pushing energy through him. Pushing energy in the microcosmic orbit, the macrocosmic orbit, different up and down his central column, Shushumna, Surya. Anyway, and I remember the Qigong practice that I was speaking about earlier of becoming infinite, likening the body to the cosmos. And so one of the descriptions that I read was imagine your body being as large as the cosmos. And of course, the cosmos is infinite. And if you start to think, like sometimes when I practice this, I can get really big, and sometimes I can only get as big as the moon. And the moon's pretty far away, but there's a lot out there besides the moon. Sometimes I can be as big as Jupiter. Sometimes I can stretch myself out, my awareness of self out to galaxies beyond, to the stars, to the zodiac, things that I'm aware of conceptually. One of the things that I've always been excited about the idea of sex is that we can do so much more with two people than we can do with one. Like we can do so much more with a group than we can do by ourselves. So with this guy's energy open to me and this concept coming into my mind, I pictured what our bodies looked like from the outside. And I let that expand. There's a phrase that Wan Li uses. Wan Li uses a phrase about being big, like a king, dignified. But Li Zhongfeng uses a phrase like, I'm a big body of love, and you try to make yourself as gigantic as you can imagine yourself being. It's a big Qigong practice of, surpassing your physical limitations. So I start picturing our bodies, and I make our bodies transparent, translucent, almost not there, but the shapes are still intact, the form. And I picture it being the cosmos, and maybe it's the height of the energy from the cookie I ate that my sister gave me years ago, and the high of the concert that I attended, and the high of the experience I had earlier in the day with this little daddy bear that I met. Just all the different highs of the day happening, and the energy coming together, and just the concept of Qigong. But I'm able to imagine the shape of our bodies being the entirety of the cosmos, larger than I had ever been able to picture before. Picturing galaxies, gas clouds, huge amounts of mass of space. And it occurred to me for the first time that if one were to expand the body, like say the body you're in right now, if one were to expand the body so that each element, each atom were a star, were an individual star. Sit in a posture of excellence. Yeah, that's right, totally. If one were to expand your own body right now so that each atom was a star in the night sky or in a galaxy, with the same ratio of space between each of those stars as there is between each atom in your body, as I was saying earlier in popular science or in physics, that there's mostly space in all the matter in your body. Imagine how large your body would be. Imagine how large your body would be if the ratio of space in your body was the distance between each star in the sky, in the universe, in the cosmos. So this idea occurs to me, and I'm like, oh, that's how it allowed my body to get so big. And I remembered something that Leonard Susskind said, because I recently watched this YouTube Leonard Susskind thing, where he was talking about they found, when they talk about what it means that the universe is a hologram, that the exact same thing is happening here, wherever here is, wherever one is perceiving here. It's happening also on the edge of the universe. Now, this is high-level fucking math, science, crazy physics, quantum mechanics shit. What does that mean, the edge of the universe? The edge of the universe is infinite. So what does that mean? And he said, well, mathematically, whatever is happening here is also happening in perfect time, projected on the edge of the universe, which might be flat. What is the shape of infinity? And he said that mathematically they can't tell which one is real and which one's the projection. They can't tell if the real happening of things is on the edge of the universe or here, wherever here is being perceived. So I love this because this isn't like a religious thing, and that a lot of people will be like, "Our religions are stupid." This is a science thing, and I don't. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are like, "Science is stupid." There are a lot of people who think science is stupid, but I love this. This is like high level math. Yeah, there's these great Leonard Susskind things. Like if you Google or whatever, do a search on YouTube for to Leonard Susskind and holographic universe. It's pretty great. So anyway, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about like, wow. So each moment of awareness is uniformly existing all throughout the entire universe, which I've always understood to be true, but I've never understood how it could possibly be true before. Like I've believed it was true. That's right. I believed it was true, but didn't understand how it could possibly be true. And in this little flash last night, well, in post-orgasmic like QiGong connection weirdness with this guy that I just met in a hotel in Times Square, I was able to understand that the ratio of all of things, the macrocosm, microcosm, that all the stars, all the galaxies can relate to clumps of matter in this world. And if it's just all expanded out infinitely, that each of these solid objects are perfect in ratio representations of the infinite cosmos. And I was like, oh, that's how, and like in my mind it flickered through. It was like, oh, that's how we can travel these infinite distances. You just identify with a different part of the matrix, and then you're just there. That's where your awareness pops in. Because I've always had this understanding that there's a physical form that we manifest in here, like the parts of the tree you can see, like the bark and the trunk and the branches. But underneath there's the roots. And I feel like all of the life forms that are moving around have roots in another dimension, and perhaps wings and tails and other things in other dimensions that are just as much a part of you as this body is. And it kind of gave me a concept of how, a little bit more of understanding how the universe works. I really agree. I really agree with the understanding of Buddhism that everything is infinitely empty, and the understanding of Hinduism that it's all a total illusion based on willful ignorance of the infinite existence of potential of the universe. That's another whole story. But I've still always been really fascinated with what is the complex mechanism of this crazy reality structure we're in. It's not so much about wanting to control it, but I, to a certain degree, respect it and play with it better. I definitely wanted to control it when I was younger. And we all have that thing, like if we could make things differently, we would. If we could be different, if we could make the world function differently, we would. Mark Sheely Mark, he said that Qigong sex experiences can be akin to acid trips, similar enlightening mental states. I would say that everything can be akin to acid trips, and acid trips are different for a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people who just party on acid and they just think, wow, cool colors and geometric patterns, and they don't necessarily have multidimensional existential understandings about things, or sometimes they do and it's not a big deal. These people are angry. Angry. I don't know who's so angry. I'm sorry you're so angry. Oh my gosh. But I find that, meditation can be the same kind of thing. Going for walks, being naked in the forest, going for a bike ride, listening to music, singing. No, I wouldn't say drugs mostly prevent enlightenment. I don't think anything prevents enlightenment except for willful delusion and willful ignorance. And willful ignorance is necessary to let the game happen. So enlightenment is pervasive and always undestructible. That's one of the things that I've really come to appreciate in a more in-depth way, um, in these meditation retreats is, like, we're all the fundamental nature of the mind and heart is enlightened. Everybody is enlightened all the time, and it's the things we cling to, that, like, the beliefs we have, the hatred, the anger, the fear, the greed, that makes us not enlightened. And we cling to being closed and tight and unhappy, and that's what makes us not enlightened. Uh, but that's also, it's necessary to make the story happen. So I guess maybe that's another story. But I've got to give a massage. So I think I've adequately expressed the idea I wanted to express, and whoever was very angry has kind of gotten over it or blown his fan out, so he's fine now. And I think that that's a fine enough introduction. Instead of splitting into two parts, it was nice. It'll be like, not family friendly for some people to talk about in-depth sex, but that's just the way it is sometimes. Yeah, and so thank you for, I guess thank you to all you, and thank you for all the love, and all my friends. And yeah, and so that's my intention. I'm going to publish a list of stories that I want to tell, and I'm going to take requests, and I'm going to ramble like this possibly every day, and possibly for a while, and possibly at least 39 times. But I'm happy to tell stories over and over again, and if anybody wants to do a collaborative, like, conversation-y type thing, that would be interesting to me as well. But I really appreciate you people asking questions while we're here and listening. And have a lovely Saturday evening and Sunday, and I'll talk again tomorrow. Good night.